Do you think the 49ers will win the NFC this year, or how likely is it?
I think it's unlikely because you have
Mhm.
a quarterback that's playing in his first year of starting. So anytime you see that, there's just so many different
Yeah,
growing pains and different things that he's going to
yeah.
see. But if we kind of say, all right, he's just solid, right? He's a solid starting NFL quarterback, then I'm pretty confident that the 49ers can definitely go pretty far. This is a terrific roster.
Hmm.
They don't have a whole lot of holes. The holes that they do have, they've shown the ability to really kind of mask those in the sense of still kind of resulting in W's. I remember 2017 when the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo came and he did a really good job of being efficient down the stretch. And they were able to mask having guys like Zane Beatles
Hmm.
starting on the offensive line, right? And that was not ideal, having him and some of the other guys that they had to play with, but they figured it out. And we've seen them really be able to do that, whether it was the cornerback situation last season and somehow, some way where you got to go out there with Josh Norman and you have inexperienced guys like Diamador Lenore, you have an inexperienced guy like Ambry Thomas, and somehow, some way, 49ers have the number 6 pass defense
Yeah.
statistically in the NFL. So, can you overcome the quarterback position? That's a little tougher. I think I'd assume Trey Lance will play at a good enough level to be able to win games. And if they could do that, man, terrific coaching, they can go pretty far, even as it pertains to around the league. I think the 49ers have one of the best rosters in the league. And I think a lot of fans, because we're going to look at every single player, every single position, and nitpick every single spot. You can point out a spot here and there where it's like,
Mhm.
this isn't great, this isn't great. But overall, it's one of the best rosters in the entire NFL.
When the schedule came out, I said 9-8. I looked at a team that went 10-7 last year, lost a few players, has a tougher schedule. I thought 9-8, and I'm focused on the Niners. Now I'm looking around the NFC and I'm looking at a conference that's down. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Tampa is in shambles right now. At least their offense is. Offensive
Tampa has
line,
some weird things going on. They're
yeah,
losing offensive linemen, it feels like, left and right. You got to hope that a guy
May.
like Chris Godwin
Oh yeah,
is, good coming off of the injury.
yep,
Mike Evans, he's
yep,
he's been productive, but he's definitely not the Mike Evans of old.
right.
So this is a team, they're probably gonna have to bank a little bit on just Tom Brady, who just left it
Hmm.
and came back mysteriously, being able to carry them once again.
And then you got Green Bay loses Devontae Adams. Like I saw that offense against the Niners with Adams in the playoff. They couldn't do anything. So I'm skeptical of that
Who are their
team.
receivers
I
off
don't
the top of
even
your head?
know. I mean, I don't. Is Christian Watson healthy? No.
He just came back, and
Okay,
we'll
he
see,
just came
because
back.
the tough thing with him is you have to build a rapport with Aaron Rodgers.
Right. Good luck.
And right
They
now,
haven't
I
had
think they're
time.
banking on Alan Lazard really being a wide receiver one for them. So
No.
it's going to be like Lazard, probably Romeo
Sammy
Dubs,
Watkins.
Sammy Watkins.
All right. So I think that team, they have a great defense, though, great quarterback. And then Minnesota, like, I just saw them. They're okay. They're pretty good. They got Jefferson's a great player, and Zadarius Smith's a great player, but Kirk Cousins, and then you got the Rams. I don't think they're as good as they were last year. The Cardinals are a joke, even though they have a really good quarterback. Cliff Kingsbury, oh my God. He tried to show up Kyler Murray, like, you call the plays. He's like, okay, I just did a way better job than you. It's like, yeah, well, I suck. I'm Cliff Kingsbury. I don't know. I feel like even though the offensive line's a question mark and Trey should have played last year, man, it's so wide open. If they could have some good luck with injuries, they could do it. I don't know.
They can. I think the NFC is definitely primed for the taking. The equalizer between some of those teams and the 49ers will be the quarterback position. But if Trey Lance plays well, then yeah, I mean, the 49ers, this is ready. It's ready for
Yeah.
them to be able to make a really good playoff push. And, I'm looking at the teams in there right now. I mean, maybe Dallas Cowboys, but it looks like they just lost their left tackle,
Right.
Tyron Smith.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
lost Amari Cooper. They're
Right.
panicking. I listen in and I know what's going on there. My brother's a diehard Cowboy fan.
Yeah.
I got friends that are diehard Cowboy fans. I know what's going on with them. They're not too happy about what's going on the opposite side of the ball. They've lost weapons. Ezekiel Elliott was kind of a shell of himself last season. Still productive on paper, but kind of a shell of himself because of this knee injury. Is he healthy coming back from that? That's something that they have to deal with. I mean,
Yeah.
the Cowboys, there are a lot of question marks. And one thing that really helped them last season was they took the ball away at an extremely high rate. I don't know
Yep.
if anybody
Diggs.
had more takeaways
Right.
than the Dallas Cowboys. can they repeat that
Right.
as a defense? So huge question marks really around the league. I think the 49ers are one of the more teams that you're comfortable with. And I think it was with Chris Canty that keeps going out and saying, hey, 49ers going to the Super Bowl, even with Trey Lance, they're going to the Super Bowl. Because, I mean, when you look at the 49ers just roster as a whole and how good they can be on both sides of the ball, I can definitely see a scenario where they go really far.
Well, their regular season schedule to me is just so hard. But if they can weather that storm and just sneak into the playoffs, there's 7 spots. It's a down conference. I mean, maybe 10 wins gets them there like last year. And then all of a sudden, now Trey Lance is starting his 20th game in the NFL, and he has some experience. And maybe he's a better quarterback in January of this year than he is right now, because he might actually improve with time with experience as opposed to the previous one that I forget him. So yeah, this team could actually make a run.
One thing about Trey Lance is I think we've seen it just in the short time that he's played is he does at least improve in the sense of kind of understanding what is being asked of him. I think there's certain areas that he will have to work on, and we might not see the effects of that this year. Like just like being just more accurate, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not something that's going to happen overnight. That's going to be a process of 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and continuing to kind of work on that aspect of his game. But even then, I mean, you can be, you don't have to be the most accurate quarterback and still be extremely effective. And I think he can still be that.
Before we move on, I keep thinking of this team as the Seahawks from 10 years ago. You have a great defense. You have a bad offensive line. The Seahawks always had a bad offensive line, but a great run game. You have a dual threat quarterback, great defense, and weapons. And they won a Super Bowl. They were a dominant dynasty that way. And they carried Russell early on, and then he developed into being, a great quarterback in his own right. But like, he never threw over the middle that much. There were limitations to his game. There may be limitations to Trey's game as well. He could still win a lot and be a champion. I think they could sort of follow the same script.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And that's again, we've seen it with some of the other guys around the league as well. Early on in their career, most guys have some kind of things holding them back just a little bit that they have to figure out how to overcome it. Now, you'll have some that just hit the ground running. I mean, and we've kind of been spoiled over the last couple of years being able to watch guys like Justin Herbert just look great. Yeah, and he has to overcome one of the hardest things, and that's his head coach. Having to overcome his head coach's decision making.
He's the new Stafford in Detroit.
We've seen some other quarterbacks where it's like, all right, this guy, like, he's ready to go. But for a lot of guys, it's a process. And I've seen it with Dak Prescott, right? Like Dak Prescott, rookie year is, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. Second year, Dallas Cowboy fans were pulling their hair out trying to figure out why does this guy suck? He was so good the previous year. And it's just a process that some of these young quarterbacks have to go through.
If Trey Lance can hit the ground running like Colin Kaepernick did 10 years ago, this team's making a run. Now, the difference though, and I hate to be negative, but Kaepernick was he had the same quarterback coach, he had the same coach. I mean, he was older. I mean, Trey's on his second quarterback coach. The first one, it's like, did you throw out everything you learned from him? Like, did the Niners what happened with Scangarello? Now you got Brian Greasy. Like, what does he offer? Is he a life coach or a quarterback coach? I feel for Trey a little bit here because he's a big project. And Josh Allen was a big project. They brought in Ken Dorsey, who had already done great work with Cam Newton. And it was like, oh, okay, like they're similar quarterbacks. And he's doing great work again. Now, the Niners are like experimenting. And I hope it works out for Trey.
I think one of the more underrated parts about, kind of the whole Colin Kaepernick thing and kind of some of the things he was able to do was, I mean, he was extremely, extremely productive at Nevada. Started like damn near every year there. Then coming into the league, they adopted part of the offense that made him feel really comfortable and used that as almost like a base offense. And he was able to run that, and kind of make those special plays to the extent of being able to, lead the 49ers to a Super Bowl. And it was no question about who like the star was during that moment. Yeah, the defense had some, big time guys, but when teams were stepping on that field, it was like, okay, we got to stop Colin Kaepernick, and he was making a lot of plays. So, I mean, that the comfortability, again, of just the experience he had with playing at Nevada and then understanding what was being asked of him with that offense, I think it was a good marriage.
That's why, to me, I feel like that was the Niners' the most legitimate Super Bowl window since Steve Young. Because for a year and a half, Colin Kaepernick was a top 10 quarterback. People forget that. But there was a legit conversation like, who's better, him or Russell Wilson? That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Oh, if you had to, who's better, him or Andrew Luck? Well, maybe Luck, but Colin could. I mean, that's what people would say back then, and his numbers were outstanding in the playoffs too. So the Niners, I mean, that's when they were legit. If Trey Lance could get to that level, yeah, they could definitely win a Super Bowl. He's younger. He hasn't had the same type of
He hasn't
structure
thrown a
around
lot
him.
of passes. I mean,
Hasn't
that's
thrown-
my biggest
yeah.
thing.
Yep.
The attempts aren't quite there, and he has to get there, and that's fine. That's fine. He's just getting it at a time where the expectations for the 49ers are Super Bowl, and that's the hard part.
Yeah. Right.
Like
But what you're
if
saying
that
with
wasn't the 49ers
Cap-
expectations, I don't even think it would be as big of a conversation as it's been on the national media and all that.
But you're saying with Cat, like it was easier to coach him because you could say, well, we can always fall back on the stuff he had success with in college. He did it a ton.
Right.
And
they structured the offense around that. I mean,
Right.
obviously they had similar concepts with
Right.
Alex Smith, but they did a lot more pistol
Yeah.
with Colin Kaepernick, and he was very comfortable doing that.
Yeah, with Trey, it's harder to fall back on what he did in college because he didn't do a lot in college. To me, Trey is much more like the way I think of Trey Lance. He's a super Alex Smith. He's really smart. He can do everything, and he's better at everything than Alex Smith was. But there's still some questions like where you came from, Utah. It took Alex Smith a while. Is it going to take Trey Lance a while? That's my question. We'll see.
I think part of the reason why it took Alex Smith a while, and remember,
What was around him?
I remember.
Yeah.
One, the team was trash.
It was.
You talk about
The
coaching
coaches
changes, and he had the ultimate coaching changes every single year. Yep. And he had a lot of injury issues as well. People don't remember. I mean, that first year with Alex Smith, I believe he had 1 touchdown pass and 11 interceptions.
That's true.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if, any quarterback in the league came in, you're the first overall pick, and you throw 1 touchdown pass and 11 interceptions in a season? I mean,
yeah, you'd be a meme in 2022. Yeah. So I'm not saying he's going to do that. I think about Alex Smith if he had been drafted by a good team. There's a parallel universe where Alex Smith is went to a bunch of Pro Bowls on a good team, where he was drafted by Kansas City or whatever. A good coach like John Gruden or Andy Reid. I believe that. So I'm not saying that Trey Lance is going to be like Alex Smith. I think Trey Lance is a super Alex Smith in a good situation. But
I think they're different. They're different.
Okay.
I just think the way they see the field is extremely different. Trey Lance, his eyes, although in college he was more of a game manager would be the wrong word for it, but he was more conservative.
Yes.
With the passes he attempted.
Yeah.
He's just much more aggressive than what I saw from Alex Smith throughout his career. And what I mean by that is just with his eyes, how he sees the field. There are times where Trey Lance drops back and it's like, hey, you can take the check down, right?
That's true. I agree.
Where Alex Smith is going to check down before he gives anything else, even the opportunity to develop.
You're right. You're right.
I think that was one. So they're kind of completely different from that standpoint.
I agree. I guess it's just maybe their personality. Alex Smith was the number 1 pick. Trey Lance is the number 3 pick. There's a lot of pressure that comes with that, as opposed to being like Jimmy or Colin. Those were second-round picks that were like, hey, look at me. I didn't necessarily know I was going to be a franchise quarterback, but here I am. I feel like Trey and Alex had a ton of pressure. They're both 21 when they were drafted. They're like, okay, I'm a CEO right now. I'm a CEO right now. It's like, chill. Just be a football player, at least a little bit to me. They mean so well. It's like your heart breaks for them. And that's what Steve Young said. They're so earnest. Yeah.
Well, good guys. And I think both of those guys, including Alex Smith, the one thing that you hope Trey Lance does, which, I think we've kind of spotted those kind of personality traits, is to be able to overcome adversity.
Yep.
And I remember a lot of people when Alex Smith came back with Jim Harbaugh, there were people, they wanted Alex Smith out of there. Like, why would you keep Alex Smith? Now, you had the lockout and everything, and it almost felt like that was the only reason why they were keeping him around, was because, hey, there's a potential lockout, and he was able to kind of keep the team together. And obviously, 49ers went on to win a lot of games that year.
Yeah.
But people wanted him out of San Francisco at that time, and he was able to overcome years of adversity. Remember, he got benched for Troy Smith.
Everyone. David Carr, Troy Smith. It was embarrassing.
Or David Carr, excuse me.
They
were chanting for David Carr while Alex Smith was on the field. Come on now.
And it was like, he was a number 1 pick. He was supposed to be elite. They got taken over Aaron Rodgers. Embarrassing. But he ended up developing into an elite game manager, if there is such a thing. He was very good at managing games, which is not what you want with the number 1 pick. I think Lance can be an elite game manager plus, you know what I mean, plus so much more. But I like a quarterback who doesn't.
I feel like if you're an elite game manager, plus you're not
not a game manager. But what I'm saying is, like, you protect the football. Alex Smith, by about 27, figured out the one thing I have to do is protect the football. If I do that, I'm going to last in this league for a very long time. And I can't sacrifice that for anything. I think Trey Lance, I mean, at least that's what he was like in college. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe Kyle Shanahan will drill that out of him. But
I think it looks like that because he had 0 interceptions the 1 year. So I think, like, we look at that and it's like, oh, man, like, game manager because he didn't throw any picks.
Right.
But I don't think that's truly who he is, like, at his core.
He may be more of a gunslinger. At least in training camp he was. He would throw a pick, come right back. I mean, he has no conscience right now.
He's more aggressive.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, that could be good, that could be bad. He's going to figure out what he can and can't get away with.
Yeah, no, I wonder how aggressive Alex Smith would have been if he didn't mess up his shoulder and wasn't drafted by the Niners and didn't get benched for Troy. Because I feel like by a certain point he was like, I just have to survive. Like Trey Lance is out here thriving. But if you take the amount of criticism that Alex Smith had, it has an effect on you, I would think. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
The situation with Justin Fields is probably just in the sense of their situations.
Yes.
It's probably more comparable.
That's a good
because
point.
I mean the Bears look like a dumpster fire right now.
And he's going to get blamed for it, and he actually just needs to get the hell out of there. As soon as he got drafted by the team, I'm like, oh, screwed. Yeah. Screwed. Yeah. Every quarterback. Anyway, Coffee with Croc. That's a good name. I like that. I'm taking it. Thank you, Juice Man Jeremy. Wilson in Newton's body, but grew up like Allen. Kinda. He did grow up like Allen. That's to me why I think there's a parallel.
Wilson in Newton's body.
He's talking about Lance.
Oh, okay. So he's like
Russell Wilson.
He's like Russell Wilson,
yeah.
But in Cam Newton's body.
Yeah.
But what's the grew up like Allen? What's that part?
He's a farm kid from a really small town, and so he wasn't recruited. I mean, if you're from certain parts of the Central Valley out here, I don't know. It was Stockton. Was it Stockton that way? Like, were kids getting really recruited in Stockton, or is it too far out?
Yeah. Nah, they were getting about it.
They were.
Yeah.
Okay.
My guy Raleigh Brown. I mean, he's at USC right now. He was.
Yeah.
Raleigh. You know, I coached Raleigh at Edison. I got my Edison stuff behind me. I mean, Raleigh. But I coached him his sophomore year. He already had offers from everybody in the nation. Everybody. Alabama, Florida, everybody. Anybody you can think of, he had offers already.
Yeah. It's amazing that the most physically gifted quarterback since John Elway, maybe, in Josh Allen, was rejected by Fresno State. They were like, nah, sorry.
Right in the backyard. Had the grades, had everything. Like,
unreal.